Senator Gloria Orowba, nominated by the UDA party to the Senate, is our guest. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Karibu sana.
We haven't met this year?
No, we haven't.
Wow.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Hey, mambo ya kuwa mheshimiwa bwana. You're busy.
You don't invite me.
Should we open it? Senator.
Open.
Should we open it?
I'm well. I'm looking forward to going back into session. We are opening on 13th of February. Yeah, so I'm excited.
Very good. So on that 13th, go to Parliament. On the 14th, go to Sarit Center.
What's happening in Sarit Center?
First of all, what's happening on the 14th?
14th, I know, is the anniversary that I got publicly shamed.
Good Lord. Okay, so
on menstruation. So
that's all you remember about the day.
It's now trauma. Yeah.
Other people also celebrate Valentine's Day.
Oh yes, yes. For those who love each other.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
for those
yeah,
for
yeah,
whom
yeah,
love
yeah.
is in the air and those things, so they want to land it now. And Sarit Center is saying, Sarit Your City is saying, come and land it at the Elegance in Love dinner.
So who's going to take me there?
Don't worry. You know why?
Yeah.
Even if there's nobody
don't
to
love
take you,
anyone?
don't worry.
Mi sina mtu wa kunipeleka Sarit
Do you
Center.
love anyone?
Do you love anyone?
I love many people.
Take one.
I take all of them.
Take
People
one.
love you.
All right, City is going to give you the day's proverb.
Darkness conceals the hippopotamus.
Ati?
The proverbs for this week come from the country
You
of
see?
Namibia.
I always tell you, cities proverbs are always targeted. Mpaka naiandika. Ati darkness conceals.
The hippopotamus.
Okay. Explain.
I was rather hoping you'd do that.
No, I am a good student today.
Okay. Take darkness, take a hippo, take the color. What can you really see in darkness? Now, if what you're supposed to be looking for has a dark hue, what is the likelihood of you seeing it?
Nil.
Precisely. Now, hippopotamus is fairly big. Yes. So in darkness, you really can't see it, can you? So now,
Not really, you can't.
so take darkness figuratively, take a hippopotamus figuratively, and ask yourself, when there's darkness, what can you really see? Whether it's big or
So
small?
now, the way I've understood it, you replace darkness with Azimio, and then hippopotamus with mischief.
Yes.
Then I've understood it.
You understood it?
Yeah.
See?
Okay, now give us your interpretation.
The interpretation is darkness conceals hippopotamus. Hippopotamus is the thing that someone would like to hide, which I have taken as mischief. And then darkness, I have replaced it with Azimio. So Azimio, most of the time, the things that they do are just mischief and they are concealed. So you see they are fighting for rights. So we don't want affordable housing. Lakini it's just mischief. It's political gimmicks and digressing the population from development.
Okay.
So wewe una replace tu darkness na Azimio na hippopotamus na mischief.
So, kabisa.
Okay.
It's all right.
Higher.
We have heard you.
You've had me.
And you know what? Your interpretation is correct because that is your interpretation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mwalimu.
Today, Gloria, is the International Day
Of zero
of
tolerance.
Zero Tolerance
Of FGM.
Of FGM.
FGM. Do you have a message for that?
I have so many messages.
One, just pick one.
One, Abagusi, we need to stop. Because I come from Kisii County, and we still have female genital mutilation going on. And I'm saying my message is we need to stop. We need to stop it. We know the repercussions. We know that it has no value. So we need to stop. But my second message, which I'm sure many Kenyans do not know, is that we have another form of genital mutilation, intersex genital mutilation. Did you know about that? Which nobody talks about. Where you have a child who's born as an intersex, and then the parent decides, but I want to have a girl, so they literally...
Pause. Pause. Explain intersex. What is it?
Intersex, in very basic language, is where you have a person who does not have a clear they are neither male or female.
You know that what you just said is not clear at all.
There is no clarity of their sex, their
Why?
sexual orientation.
Why?
Because it comes in different forms. There are like 47 different forms, like our counties. So you can have like a full grown woman who has
What's female features?
female features,
Yes.
but has got chromosomes that are of male dominance.
Meaning they have a deep voice.
And internally, they also have a sexual orientation that is male. Or vice versa. You can have a full grown man who actually has a
Female
whole
gonads.
reproductive system
of a man.
of a woman internally. So they even have menstruation,
But if you look at the person physically,
including they have a penis.
and they even have a beard.
Everything. But then internally, they have a womb, they have their cycles, and they have their menses.
So, this mutilation.
So what has been happening because of the lack of sensitization of even the knowledge of the same is that you have parents, they get a child and they are informed that the sex is not clear. It could be a boy or a girl. And they decide maybe the penis, for instance, is not as pronounced. And then they ask the doctor to operate and surgically remove that.
Okay.
And then later, unfortunately, this child grows into being a man. And so that's what we're calling that type of genital mutilation, which nobody talks about, but is actually on the increase. And it is affecting a whole community of more than 1,000 Kenyans. The last population census of the intersex, which by the way, Kenya was the first country in Africa to have a census of intersex. Yeah. And it had around 1,570. Those who at that time did not feel the stigma to go and present themselves. If another census is done now with the sensitization that we have done and people being aware and the openness of this issue of being intersex, there are definitely thousands and thousands of people who are intersex.
Who are
It's a
actually,
big
yeah.
community. Yeah.
Are you aware of the bill by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights on intersex?
Yes.
Championed by Dr. Dennis Omalwa, who
Yes.
was himself
Yes.
the first person in the world to occupy a state office as an intersex.
I didn't know about him being the first person in the world to occupy a state office, but yes, I'm aware of the bill. And just to add on that, having been in parliament now, I've realized that there's so many ways to solve issues from a legislative perspective. And it's not only through bills. So a bill is very lengthy, bureaucratic, requires a lot of buy-in. It takes 18 months to 20-something, maybe 3 years even for it to pass and be put into law. But one of the things that I have done with representatives of the intersex community is that I wrote a letter to the PS of the Ministry of Interior, which deals with registration of persons. And because there's an existing act, a children's act, that actually legally defines and recognizes the intersex community, most of the issues that are being, that they are trying to fix with the bill, let me say like 40%, not all, can actually be fixed through regulations. So I have requested the Ministry of Interior to front regulations to make sure that intersex community are not deprived of their rights. For instance, they can't get an ID. They can't get an ID. They can get a birth certificate with I as the sex, but they cannot get an ID with I. So they have to choose to be female or male, or and those are some of the things that through the regulations you can cure, because the regulations are anchored to a Mother Act, which exists in the Children's Act 2022.
Okay,
So-
and all this hinged on the fact that this is a natural occurrence. It is not a choice that
It's
they
not
have
a
made
choice.
to be in this condition.
Yeah, it's not a choice. Intersex people don't choose to be who they are. You
Right.
are born like that, and then what happens is these corrective surgeries that people try to pursue, but at the end of the day, we have to be aware that this community exists and they still need to have services, they need to have IDs, they need to be recognized. There's a whole problem with Athletics Kenya and that community, because there are athletes who are female who are seen as not truly 100% female are not allowed to participate, and those who are male who are not seen as male. So it's a lot of issues. Insurance companies don't even recognize how to give policies to intersex people. Like, will I cover you for maternity or not? Will I cover you for sexual reproductive health rights needs in terms of a woman or not? So it's a whole space that needs to be looked into. And today, as we're celebrating the anti-FGM, zero tolerance to FGM day, I want to include that particular community because there is the intersex genital mutilation that nobody talks about.
But sure, please, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Titi. So, Senator, even as you talk about these things and then jumping in to be able to help a lot of folks who are not even underrepresented, not represented when it comes to certain things, and then we see that there's so many needs today. In Kenya today, there are so many needs. If we look at health needs, we are, we're underwater. If we look at education needs, again, underwater. And I think we're inundated. Today, I was supposed to have an appointment with somebody later. And you know what she said to me? She said, unfortunately, I will not be able to make it. I said, why? Because you are she said, no, I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, where are you going? She said, she's going to queue for bursaries. They're giving bursaries in her area. She's going to queue so that her child can get some school fees to be able to go. That's just one representative. That's what's going on. But you've thrown yourself into those waters, obviously, to be able to help a lot of folks out. But let's start with, why are we at this place where the needs are so great, but there are mechanisms supposedly set up by the legislature to make sure that this situation which we find ourselves in doesn't happen, but it is happening?
So I strongly believe that we are in this particular place as a country because we want to go to heaven, but we don't want to die, because we want to have good roads and a good system and a good governance and we want all these nice things that we keep quoting from Singapore and from the US and developed countries. But when you inform Kenyans that these things come at cost, and the only sustainable cost is taxes, we are the same people who don't want to pay taxes. So who doesn't want to pay taxes? We are the same individuals who will find every single corner to cut not to pay taxes. And I say this as we, beginning with me, not because I'm avoiding taxes, but I do know that in my younger years, I'm not that young, in my younger years, there was that thing of, why should we have to pay for this? Why should we have to pay for that? Maybe if I do ABCD, I'll not be able to pay for that particular fee. And I've had to mature into understanding that every single time that I think I'm being overtaxed, I should also not complain about a certain government service that is not efficient or effective. And it does not necessarily equate to that, because sometimes it's an issue of corruption, and sometimes it's also an issue of bureaucratic nonsense procedures in government. But often, particularly now, you're talking about bursaries. Because those bursaries that are being issued either through CDF or county bursaries, whatever, they are coming from taxes. Because it is an allocation of funds that comes from the national budget that goes to specific devolved institutions, units, that it then trickles down to that bursary. So the same person that will be queuing for the bursary is also the same person who will make sure they don't want to pay any taxes. So you wonder, you start asking yourself. I think we need to sensitize people in so many ways to understand that this country can only be built by us.
Let me ask you, Senator. The person who is queuing for a bursary, why are they queuing for a bursary?
First of all, the idea of queuing for a bursary, to me, in 2023 is just crazy. It's just insane.
Okay. Why are they
Because we already have systems we can use without having people physical queuing.
Why are they seeking support to educate their children?
Definitely lack of jobs.
So sometimes they don't have an income.
No, sometimes it's sometimes it's people who don't have income. Depending on the different situations. Because I know, in particular, especially with the CDF, in particular constituencies, the people queuing for the bursaries are not necessarily the people who actually legitimately need the bursary.
It's not the deserving cases.
It's not the deserving Kenyans. So it depends from situation to situation.
How would you place that, across the country? How would you place in terms of percentage? Would you say that the people who apply for assistance to take the children to school, a majority are deserving cases,
Majority
or
are
a majority
deserving.
are non-deserving
Majority
cases?
are deserving, and in some few instances here and there, you have the cartels.
So are you saying
Yeah.
that this majority does not want to pay tax?
No, I'm saying that the same majority that we as a government are trying to reach to are the same majority that is being convinced. And that's why I started with the quote with the Azimio by other people that the initiatives that government is taking is actually against them. For instance, you meet you talk about bursary, but you go to hospitals, or I get requests. If I open my phone, you see requests of medical bills and all sorts of things. But it's the same individuals who also buy into the idea that we should go against affordable housing. We should go against the hospital fund. We should go. So, you
How
wonder,
do you know that
like,
they're buying into this idea?
because I interact with these people.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's the same people that I'm helping. And this is the thing that now you end up as a leader, as a legislator, having to do three things. Sensitizing the people constantly. I will literally, sometimes they even say stop lecturing us, because I'll tell them, listen, I'm going to help you at this point. But for this to be sustainable, you guys really have to support ABCD. That's being done either by your area MP or because you're looking for a sustainable system and mechanism where people don't keep coming to my office for any kind of assistance.
So why do you think they oppose these initiatives?
Because it's misinformation.
Really?
Yes.
You think so?
I have met so many people who are saying Abstraki affordable housing. You ask them why, they can't tell you. Or they tell you because hizo nyumba mnajitengenezea matajiri. And when you ask them, okay, explain, they actually cannot get it down. It's like repeated narrative that I hear through media, mainstream, social, otherwise, and on those campaign tracks. And you buy, it's a psychology. They buy into it to the extent that even if someone tells them from these 50 shillings you're earning, I'm taking 5 shillings to put at affordable housing, the fact that they have been misinformed, they are like, I don't want to do that.
Gloria, on the balance of probability, what do you think they have seen more? Have they seen more of a government initiative where a few people have benefited, a few undeserving people have benefited, or do you think they've seen more of an initiative where a majority deserving people benefited?
I think most of the electorate, the Kenyan people, citizens, are misled. Let me give an example with the fertilizer. When we started with the distribution of fertilizer, it was the same thing. There was a narrative being pushed down hard that this is not going to work, this is not what we need. But right now, all the farmers who have interacted with that program and actually seen the impact of it are the same ones saying, you know what, if not for anything, at least the fertilizer thing works.
You see.
But
so before
you
they
see with the
experienced
affordable housing, yes.
Before they experienced
there's this misinformation.
No.
But the
Is it
affordable
misinformation
housing,
or mistrust?
it is a it's mistrust that is built on misinformation.
And what would
Yes.
where was that misinformation coming
You
from?
see, the thing is, when I
Was it
stopped
from a lived
trusting you,
experience?
I stopped trusting you when, for instance, when you say, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are, right? Because you are highly influenced by the people around you.
Yeah.
And if the people around you are constantly telling you, like, let me take an example. Mheshimiwa, wewe, Mama Governor of Nairobi, every day this is all they're telling me. And they're around me. You walk around with some extent thinking, this is where I need to be.
Should be
So
governor.
it's a misinformation, it's a mistrust that is built on constant misinformation. And I blame the government for that because I think we are not doing enough to communicate the policies and the projects and even to share the success stories so that mistrust can be reversed and people can actually believe in the next thing that we come and say, okay, we are done with this.
Even if
This
that
is
were
what
the
we need
case,
to
I think you need to also share the responsibility of this mistrust with past experience, with lived experience.
Definitely.
You cannot put all of that on misinformation, whereby there would be an element of misinformation. I think people make decisions also based on things they've seen and gone through. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
This education thing is very, very, because you've funded for people to go to school. You've raised funds for children to go to school. There are very many competing things in this country today where somebody is thinking, if I had one more shilling, where I would like to put it would be to ensure that my children go to school or that there's food on the table. And that's the truth. We can build castles in the sky, or we can be very honest about situations that are on the ground today. So the mistrust that we're talking about comes from a lived experience to a large extent. Last year, 37% of capitation did not go to schools. This year, we're not having a conversation about where that 37% went. We're not. Nobody's asking questions about where that money went. Meanwhile,
Yet
education gets the
3.6
largest
trillion shillings was spent by government.
Spent. But nobody's asking questions about where that money went. So guess what? Today, when you come and tell parents, and I'm going to harp on this, when you come and tell parents to pay to one portal on eCitizen school fees, what do you think their first thought or feeling is going to be?
This is what I think.
In Agulwa.
This is what I think.
I really want you to tell me what
I
you
am
think
answering.
parents
No,
will
yeah.
feel.
This, no, I have to, because I am a parent. I'm not answering this in isolation. I'm a mother.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm complaining that the school is asking for extra fees. We can't see where the money is going. The head teacher, how many of those incidences have we seen on TV where even the head teachers are being kicked out? And then a government intervention comes in and says, we have seen your plight. We have seen your fears. Now, instead of paying cash to a human being who you don't trust, we are saying go to a portal and pay your school fees to a portal.
And trust it.
What more?
Trust the portal.
Let me ask you.
From an organization whereby money that was supposed to have gone to schools
let me
did not
ask
go.
let me reverse this question back at you.
Yeah.
Because every time people say that, like what we're doing now, which is healthy debate. I've hosted people during the femicide campaign, and I said to them, you're asking leaders, where were you, blah 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 blah. Okay, assuming you're the Minister of Interior, I have always asked, what would you do? That's when people realize that you can't keep pointing the finger and not coming up with a solution.
Actually, you
fine if you are not interested and you don't trust the government portal that is there. Yeah? You're saying, I don't trust the teacher. I don't want to pay cash to the teacher. They're stealing my money. Government has come with an intervention that is supposed to increase transparency. You're saying you don't trust that system.
Excuse
okay.
me.
No.
What would you want?
Excuse me.
What do
Senator,
you want?
Senator, I don't know, but are you saying that parents have been complaining that when they pay school fees, the school fees does not go to school?
Yes.
Where?
Yes. Oh, what do you mean where? We've even
So-
had features.
No, I'm
the head
asking
teacher
where
who has
exactly.
been kicked out.
So parents go to a bank, they deposit money
Yes.
to a bank account for a school.
Yes.
Yes.
And then they come back and they say, we don't think that money went to the school.
That is what I'm telling you.
Okay.
And if
what-
I can, this I speak authoritatively because
Yeah.
I have school programs going on.
Yeah.
And the biggest worry for parents is this school is asking us for money. We can't see where the money is going. And some pay cash and some pay to a particular bank account for the school, right? And there's always issues of oversight and accountability.
By we can't see, what are they saying? They're saying that the money cannot be accounted for.
They are saying
That at the end of the year, we cannot see, so we paid X amount of money, we cannot see any improvement in the school in infrastructure.
not
we cannot
only
see
improvement,
teachers
sometimes they
employed
are channeled to pay for a particular, for instance,
for a particular project.
a dining hall.
Okay.
And
And then
they
they
will
say-
come and complain, we have been fundraising for this dining hall since my firstborn was in whatever.
Yeah.
So the thing that I see and I believe and I know for a fact that we are trying to do by centralizing payments to an online system is transparency and accountability. But this is where I say I'm open as an individual. If you come to me and tell me, Gloria, this one, we also don't want this one. Come and tell me what you want. See, the problem that we have every single time when there's an intervention being given by anyone, not just government, by anyone, is that we are always on the defense. We always say, we don't want that. We don't. Okay, what do you want? Now, when I turn it around to you and say, you don't want to pay to the schools, you don't want to pay to the teachers, you're being given an online portal which you can go with your SMS and show this is where I paid. You don't want that. How then do you want to channel your funds?
Gloria, people have refused to pay school fees because it was not accounted for.
Yes.
You have an example of a school
Many.
where parents of a school said,
Many.
we will no longer pay school fees.
I am telling you because, I ran several programs in schools.
Yes.
Including when I started the nutrition program.
Yes.
Now I have a program for decongesting schools from the slums
Yes.
and moving students to less congested. So I'm
Well done.
telling you stories that every day I hear. So to some extent, I am trying now to understand because you see, I'm not saying
Because
that we always
I'm
get
trying
it
to get
right.
to the bottom of
I'm not saying
what
that
is
we-
it that the parents are actually complaining about. Is it
Parents-
about accountability for the money sent?
Parents
or is it
complain
that the
about
money that they've sent
accountability.
has been diverted.
No, they complain about two things: accountability for the money that they are being asked to raise repeatedly for whatever projects or school fees or whatever.
Okay.
In terms of where is this money actually going?
Okay.
Because you'll find that sometimes, even when you're being told, oh, this child is in a certain age and we need this extra book or whatever,
Yeah.
they'll still later be told, but you need to also buy the same book that you felt you bought. There's accountability issues.
Okay.
And then also the school fees is always being increased
Okay.
from the school, not from the ministry, not from the school.
Okay.
Right now in schools in Nairobi, you will find some schools are being told pay 1,500, primary schools. Some schools are being told pay 800. Some schools are being told not to pay anything, but then they're being put expenses in different forms.
And the e-citizen
And the
portal will solve this
e-citizen
how?
portal
It will only
give,
accept a certain amount.
number one, it will give a clarity on you're in primary school, you're in JSS, you're in this is the amount to pay. So that now that extra cost that is constantly every day, because this education thing, we are not talking about 10 schools or 15 schools or the scale at which
Tens of thousands of schools.
Yeah. And the only way for you to have an oversight is by having a proper transparent system, because we also cannot expect the Minister of Education to be able to control each and every headmistress and headmaster through TSC and whatever on how you cannot. It is it's a nightmare. So having a portal, if I pay, it's like my M-Pesa, you pay your M-Pesa, we trust it. Why? Because when you pay and it shows you the message it has gone, if someone tells you agenda, you say, "Ndio imeenda, here is my confirmation code." Now you go to the school systems that they've put, the ones using the bank accounts, the ones, there are some people who are even sending to a number, a particular, and actually, like you're paying school fees to someone's phone number.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, when this child of yours finishes school, they're not told you have
You
fees
have
arrears.
fee balance or fee arrears.
As far as you're concerned, you paid school fees and you're not told that there's an arrear.
So this is
So
what
I'm not trying to figure out what
No,
the answer
this-
is, but you just told us you run several initiatives that's helping children through school.
Mm-hmm.
And in some of them, you're actually sponsoring them through school, through your initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also have all these other programs. We have bursaries from CDF, from ward level, at national ministry level.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they not reaching these needy students?
That's I was hoping that you asked that question, because I've had other people ask, why are there so many initiatives? And I believe in many initiatives because that's why we have devolution. Why they are not helping many children is what we need to have like a deep dive on. Because I believe, for instance, I talked about the Constituency Development Fund and how most of the beneficiaries, not most, let me say in certain areas, there are some beneficiaries who are actually not the true deserving beneficiaries, because there's been like cartels that have gravitated around the members of parliament offices, and they just have figured out how to either receive double bursaries or just take the loot with them. So I think we need to fine-tune
Cartels?
on how
Okay.
as a member of parliament, kwa ground kwa ground kuna machinery. Kuna watu wa ofisi yako, within your office. There are people who helped you in campaign. And there are people who have been around those offices since your predecessors and whatever. And they know how to work the system. So what normally happens, it's like by way of experience, they are the ones who know how to navigate through what it means to get to the final list or to be a beneficiary. So they become agents. So they start selling the services of accessing bursary to deserving.
What?
Yeah, it's a whole. Let me give you an example. So I started a free program in Dagoretti North for decongesting schools. So we would take students from Kawangware Primary, from Muslim, just around Kawangware. And it was free. It is free, completely free. You get onto our list because we'll verify through my office. This is a deserving person. Their class is congested. So you get everything catered for. If it's anything to do with admissions to the transfer for the new school, I'm taking them to Kileleshwa Primary. So your not your school fees, but your uniform, your whatever expenses, including books. Yeah. Then I did the first cohort of 55 students, and because it was so believable and people understood what I'm trying to do, and the impact was so high, because there's that instant improvement in academics where they went to because it's less congested. So immediately brokers went down and started opened their to small offices in like social halls, churches, whatever, and said they're now working on my behalf to register the next intake. So we had a particular person who was charging 2,000 to get on the list. So the parents would do the math. They would be like, 2,000 ni pesa kidogo. It's little money to be on the list because she's going to take care of transport. She's going to take care of the uniform. So when you do the bigger picture, they say, 2,000 I can part with.
Price to pay.
Yeah.
Good investment.
Yeah, and that when I say cartels, I'm talking about those kind of, because by the time we got wind of what was going on, people were saying, but that program for Senator Gloria is 2,000. I'm like, who is charging 2,000? It's free. You register at my offices. It's completely free. The only thing that my team does is they look at, because the whole issue is decongesting the schools in Dagoretti North. So they will literally see where your child is transferring from to go and see the level of congestion as compared to certain schools, and then they'll prioritize. That is the only thing we were doing.
What?
Yeah. So when I tell you cartels and things, that's qua ground, that is what happens.
Mheshimiwa,
Yeah.
everything I've read about your initiatives, they're fantastic.
Thank
and
you.
You've done some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful work. In
Thank
fact,
you.
there are few people who can compare with you, maybe institutions. But this is the thing that concerns me. Whenever I see personal initiative, I see people who are willing to stand in the gap, but I also see failure on part of the government. Because why do we have so many people who need help, and yet every year there's this humongous budget that we are told is for education?
Yeah.
And yet, if I look carefully, it's working because people like you have decided they're not going to sit back and wait for these government projects to work. They're going to do what they can because they can see there's a need.
You're putting me in a very, very tight spot there, because
You shouldn't say such things in open air.
I'm an honest person, and I'm not a
think
true
I've done?
politician. I'm
honest woman.
I'm very honest.
Okay.
I come from the NGO
truthful
background,
woman.
and I'm a doer. So I have to tell you that was a very tight spot. So I will say, I don't think government has the capacity in its fullness to be able to be the savior of each and every single child out there. I'm saying this coming from a place of, I have seen the budgets, I have seen the systems, I have seen the broken systems. And the reason we have a thriving NGO industry, I call it the health mafia industry, which I am part of, is because there are many people who want to stand in the gap of that missing link. Now, for a very long time, and even during campaign, and I remember when we were drafting the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, I actually sat there and said, I feel the NGO board needs to work hand in hand with each and every government ministry or agency. Because if there's an NGO being opened today to stand in the gap of health, government should be able to understand what is this gap that someone else is trying to come and fill, and is there anything that we can do from our end to be a bit more efficient, such that we are not encouraging a country that is always looking for help. The only way to do that, one, is to have an audit, which you don't need to now have a commission of inquiry and a committee and everything for audit, because we already have an NGO board. So they should be able to tell you, for instance, under education, how many of those community-based organizations or NGOs, international or local, are operating within that space. And that's where the gap is, because I can tell you then, if I'm a minister of education, for instance, and I hear that Senator Gloria Orowba is decongesting schools in Dagoretti North. How is she doing it? She's taking students from schools that have 120 students there and taking them to schools that have empty classrooms. Then as a minister, I should be able to say, okay, I see that has an impact. How can I come in as government and be part of that initiative? For instance, let me have school buses. If transport is the issue, that way the parents are taking their kids to these places and not the other schools that are empty. Can I then that's the intervention can only come about if you are part and parcel of understanding the problem. And I feel in different government agencies, without actually pointing any finger to anyone, that sometimes you're working so hard in your space and you are not really interacting with the industry players and the gaps that are there for you to understand the problem and then say, in my ministry, I have so-and-so agency, why can't I do ABCD? And I'll tell you who has done such an excellent job at playing that, role of stakeholders and collaboration. Moses Kuria. Look at what Moses Kuria did with trade before he was moved. And then look at what he's doing with NYS, for instance. NYS has been a resource that sits there. Thousands and thousands of youth just growing old as an NYS officer and not actually being used. They are a resource that's sitting there. When I heard that now he's looking into ways to ensure that they help, for instance, with the backlog of distribution of passports, I was like, yes, because they're just sitting there. Huduma centers are full with queues and queues. One table has a queue of I don't know how many hundreds of people. And I'm like, just bring those NYS officers, train them, and have 5 desks so that people turn around time of you being in a Huduma center, because NYS it's a sitting resource. So we need more of this kind of interventions. And for me, that's where I see the missing link is. It's not that government is not working. Government is working. It's just that we could be more efficient in terms of intergovernmental collaborations with different agencies.
This intergovernmental story, though, before you even go from the government to the others, within the government itself, the amount of money that is spent on education, because you said it is not possible for the government does not have the capacity to reach every needy child. The government is actually the custodian of this child from the age of 5. When this child enters ECD, they are in government hands. Through primary school, they're in government hands. By the time this child is going into secondary school, they're in government hands. The government has direct
maybe
visibility
what I
and
should have
contact.
said is the national
two,
government. Maybe that's what I should have
the
said.
national government has this child from the age of 7.
Yes.
All the way through primary school into secondary school. The national government is a custodian of a 600 billion shilling budget directly to education. The national government is the custodian of around 40 billion shillings education bursary per constituency. 40 million. All right? Times 290. The national government is the custodian of the ministry's education budget, blah, blah, blah. The national government knows each child by name. That's why the national government can tell you which child scores how many marks and which child is going to this school. So the national government knows the needy children. I do not understand when you say it lacks the capacity to reach the needy children, such that those that are needy end up not benefiting, that they have to actually get into the arms of Gloria, Orowba and others.
Am I allowed to correct myself first of all?
Okay.
Let me say this. It's not the capacity that the national government lacks. I will say it's the systems in place that lacks the efficiency. For instance, the monies that you have quoted, I'm sure if we go down to looking at the expenditure of the same, you will find a huge lump sum of it spent on books, logistics. There's even a part that is ring-fenced to general supplies, which means you can buy anything and everything across board and put it under general supplies. That is where I think the problem is. And sometimes I look at the amounts of money we spend, for instance, on books, and I think to myself, gosh, we're moving to a digital economy, a digital world, a digital everything, where a one-off investment of a projector and, an online platform with all these things would probably suffice. Or during Corona, remember, we had kids not going to schools, right? And the kids who were home were forced to learn online through all these various platforms that suddenly mushroomed. I don't know why we are not thinking futuristic, in the sense that perhaps what we need to invest in is a digital device that doesn't need to be bought for every other student that comes in.
We also don't know why.
And then I think, no, and these are questions I'm putting out there because, we can't always say that, as government also, we are open to criticism, and me personally as well.
Government is not open to criticism.
Oh, yes, we are. That's why we are listening. That's why I have public participation. That's why I'm government. I am a government UDA nominated senator, and I am open to criticism.
All right, I'm a citizen of this government. Does it make me government?
Well, yes, because it's a collective measure. What is government? What is government? No, I'm just saying the criticism.
Senator, it's not a criticism. We are pointing out to factual anomalies that exist.
Okay.
It's not a criticism. It is always seen as a criticism when you point out and say, this isn't adding up.
So I think what we should do is be futuristic in our planning. Because if we spent a huge amount of money on buying textbooks, some of which are, I'm not saying they're irrelevant,
Senator,
but
I think we should also be presently accountable. Okay, that's it. Go.
We are very futuristic. If you go to the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, you would be amazed at what those people have done, what the plan, you would be amazed. When we had the laptop, what is that little gadget that we're supposed to give students?
One laptop for every child.
Whatever it was. We're being futuristic. In the time when I was in primary school, we used to have lessons on radio. Radio.
Me too, I remember we had lessons on radio.
Now you tell me, what? It was government.
Yes.
What stopped the government from simply going along with the development? Because radio was there for the longest time.
Maybe that's the conversation we need to have.
Now, the sort of money the government spends, if you look at the itemized, these things we talk about futuristic, they feature what is planned, what they want to do, how they want to do these things.
But let me just say, laptops are not featured to students.
No.
And what is happening is there are so many.
Please, I said plans.
Yes, maybe plans.
I said plans.
And maybe plans
for the futuristic.
But plans are plans. Yeah, me, I'm a doer. People should start implementing plans.
Plans are meant to be implemented. So when you say systems, ask.
But let me ask you then. Why then do we have a push for textbooks?
We is who?
We as a nation, people who come to my office are parents who say nisaidie kununua textbooks.
Because
those are us. That's Kenyans.
Because the education system has told them you must
buy books, and then it tells them you must change these books every so often when somebody decides to change the curriculum.
What I will say, the curriculum, by the way, needed to change. That's for sure. Because
really,
yes.
To see
the apple, but let's focus. Yeah. So my on the. It's not lacks the capacity, but I think the efficiency on how we are prioritizing and spending that money should be relooked into, considering.
In 40 seconds,
yes.
How do we move to ensure that we have this efficiency?
How do we move?
Yes.
First, we need to be able to, when there's a problem that has been put forward, we should either come with suggested solutions, and if we have none, we should accept those that has been put on the table. For instance, there's an issue of payments and head teachers and administrative people taking that money, and the solution the intervention that has been provided by the minister is that there is an online transparent portal where you pay to. Let us try it. Because
my friend,
change management can only be done. We have to do something. You can't keep talking about it. We have to do something.
Okay.
Yeah.
To make us care.
Get ready for premium tiers.
Do I have? Give me my closing remarks.
We've just given you.
My closing remarks can't be on that.
We have 10 seconds.
Okay. This is my closing remarks. There is hope for this country. Be positive. Our president is working hard to make sure that all these bureaucratic, logistical nightmares are being solved across board. Yeah.
Sawa. To make us care.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.